Want to advertise your business in a cost-effective way? It's time to give podcast advertising a try. Research shows a high rate of podcast listeners made a purchase as a result of an ad they heard on a podcast. Visit podbean.com/brands to launch a cost-effective podcast advertising campaign in minutes. That's podbean.com/brands.
Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're on Podbean, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We're also on Dash Radio on their Nothing But Net channel. That's every single weeknight at 7 p.m. Also, check out the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. We went over 15,000 subscribers tonight. Check out Post Up 5R as soon as the game ends, before Floor, an hour before the game begins. Also, 5reasonsports.com. That's where you find our written content without a paywall. And of course, the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. That includes our friends over at CPT of South Florida. This is where you want to go for your IT. They've been providing small and medium businesses with the technology they need for decades. They specialize in cloud-hosted phone systems and managed IT. If you own a small or medium business, you're looking to save money on your monthly phone and internet costs, give TJ a call right now. It's 954-966-2766, 954-966-2766. Make sure you ask for the 5 Reasons promotion, 25% off cloud phone service, including free phones in the first 2 months of service free. 954-966-2766, cpt-florida.com. And now, tonight's episode.
Down to Biscayne. Yeah. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to 5 on the Floor. I'm your host, Greg Sylvander. No Ethan Skolnick with us tonight. We are about to break down Miami's loss in Cleveland. With me on tonight's episode, we have Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket on Twitter. And we have Brady Hawk, who you can follow at Brady Hawk 305 on Twitter as well. Make sure you check out 5reasonsports.com for all of Brady's work. He's always breaking out all of the key takeaways from each night and all the matchups. And he's on top of everything, some of the best content in the market. So guys, I mean, as we talk about this game, Cleveland is a bad matchup, I guess. I don't think I'm scared of them as a playoff team, but as a regular season team, this is definitely not a team that I like Miami's matchups with. Part of it is that the team is just not good enough without Bam and without Jimmy. I think that there's some things we definitely need to talk about that have larger implications, and maybe I'll make too much of them. But I guess I'll start here with the way that they played in the third quarter to kind of see it fall apart in the fourth. Alex, I'll start with you. What was your key takeaway in terms of what you watched down the stretch and the way that this team kind of they got it close? It looked like they were going to make a game of this thing. It looked like that they had enough, and then the bottom kind of fell out.
I mean, this is a game that was kind of very characteristic of the Heat over the past few years, especially when they're good. Right, specifically when they're good. It's like they play down to teams that are worse than them, play up to teams that are better than them. It just happened right now with, the Bulls and the Bucks, specifically when the Heat are missing Jimmy and Bam, right? Those are teams that you would think are better than them, even if the Bulls are missing DeRozan and others. It's just like they come out tonight, road game, they're still missing the same guys they were before, and the effort is just not the same. It's not the same execution. The main takeaway is that, right? It's like you come out and you have way more turnovers than the other team. The other team has way more free throw attempts than you. They're just doing what they want. And then the Heat allow more threes than anybody per 100 possessions. And that's kind of the result of it, right? Like there's going to be nights when you're trying to do that on a night-to-night basis. There's going to be nights where the other team just grabs that rhythm, right? Like you're leaving them open a guy like Kevin Love is going to take advantage and can get into a rhythm easily and just kind of throw off any comeback attempt that you think you have, right? Because they've been getting into that rhythm the whole game. They know that those shots are going to be there for them. And that's kind of the result. Like everything else kind of gets locked down, but the open threes are the open threes. And you're going to have nights like tonight where the biggest anomaly there was Isaac Okoro, who's not a shooter whatsoever, went 4 of 8 from 3 tonight. And he's going to go under random scrub heat killer, according to Heat fans, even though we know that it's just going to happen every single night. There's going to be somebody who's going to go 4 threes who you're not expecting or something like that. So it's more of the same. The difference was you just couldn't get enough offense to make any sort of comeback attempt because the defense wasn't good enough. And then you just didn't have enough 3-point shooting coming from Kyle and Duncan. And Tyler, by the way, too, who was 0 for 3 from 3 tonight.
Yeah, no, we're going to talk about Tyler. But Brady, Alex alluded to random scrub heat killers, and none of these dudes are scrubs. But, you know, you mentioned him hitting 4 threes, Okoro hitting 4 threes. Kevin Love hit 5. He did him one better. Seems to like get up for this matchup, and I don't know why. I feel like
Kevin Love always kills the Heat, right? I'm not making that up.
There's karma there because I used to make fun of Kevin Love. For anybody that doesn't know, I used to be very relentlessly. I was relentlessly picking at Kevin Love for years because everybody was saying he was better than Chris Bosh, and I took offense to that. So in defense of Chris Bosh, I went after Kevin Love for years, and now it is coming back to haunt me. He's haunting me, Brady. So like, tell me why the hell can't they stop Kevin Love? And also just overall, like what was something that you took away from this game that maybe the box score wouldn't tell us?
Yeah, I think the main thing with the threes was just that we're talking about a team of 3 7-footers, basically. And we're talking about them going down to the box. They were basically had to double early on. Like they had a double all game, but you just cannot let them go one-on-one. Even if it's Dedmon that's sitting there guarding the post, you have to double down. And it was funny because Gabe Vincent actually had a couple plays where he tied up one of the bigs. Like he kept having those moments where it was looking good, but I kept saying to myself, I even tweeted, I think it was like in the second quarter, I said, like, they're going to pick this apart eventually. Like the doubling is not going to last 4 quarters and they're just going to be able to get away from it. Like they're going to start hitting the 3. They started making those reads. They started hitting the roller a lot quicker when they were blitzing. And it just felt like threes were just coming out of it. We're talking about the threes being made, but it's funny because the threes on both sides were pretty even. Like even if you looked at the field goals made and field goals attempted all game, like I was just looking at it. Every point I looked at it, it was probably like pretty identical. The only difference was free throw shooting. Like the free throw attempts was just much more for Cleveland. And it's funny because then I look down the roster and I just don't see a player on the Heat's roster today that is going to get you free throws. Like it's just like maybe you get a foul here and there accidentally, but nobody's out there going to draw fouls. Kyle Lowry's the only one, but at this stage, he's not really that guy that's going mismatch hunting to go draw fouls. If he's mismatch hunting, he's going to try to score the ball like he did in that third quarter. So it's just a much different team. We're talking about a team that doesn't have Jimmy and Bam, so it's harder to pick at the free throw stuff and things like that just because it's so different. But one of my main takeaways, we're going to talk down in a little lower light in a game like this, but PJ Tucker, man, like once again, just steps up in that way. Like, I don't think anybody could have said he would be first option in games like this. Like, it's funny because last time they played Cleveland, I said before the game, like this would be a PJ game where he has over 20 points. And everybody's like, that's not going to happen. It did not. But it felt like that because of the matchup wise. It just, when you have 3 bigs like that and you put PJ in the corner, you're basically forcing a big to come all the way out there. If they don't, you're going to have the roll. You're going to have other options. You're going to kill the team from tonight in the same exact way. It was the same exact teams on both sides. And he basically did that. It was kind of odd because the first 6 minutes of the game, he was 3 for 7 from the field and 2 for 4 from 3. In the last game alone, the entire game against Chicago, he was 3 for 7 from the field and 2 for 4 from 3. Like PJ Tucker attempting this many shots, like this is a season high and attempts this from this season, 10 attempts, I think was the highest. I think Eric Reed said that on the broadcast, but just seeing him be able to do that and hit these different spots is just a big time thing. And my last takeaway was just Dedmon can only do so much. Like we're looking at a team that has these bigs. Defensively, first of all, Dedmon is the perfect guy to have against this team. As you talked about, like the playoff wise, if you see them in a playoff series, like he's the perfect complement to throw at them off the bench. He's kind of bang around down low and trying to throw them off, but he is not the guy that you can just base yourself around. You cannot have hit Dedmon out there and say, that's it. Like, this is our only way we're going to go around this. So I saw that as a bit of an issue, but it's an issue that you can't really solve because there's nobody else in the roster. And offensively, we talked about some of the offensive issues, but this is kind of looking at things a little bit through a microscope. But I saw like they have to use Dedmon like Dedmon. Like they can't use Dedmon like Bam. And it feels like there's so many instances where they're using Dedmon like Bam. Like you can use PJ like Bam because PJ can do little things like the handoffs, the screen, so many different like layers. Dedmon is standing out there 4 straight possessions offensively on the 3-point wing, just kind of looking around, and then it gets low in the shot clock. And then Tyler or Kyle has 2 6'10" guys in his face. Like I felt like that was happening over and over. Like if you're going to use Dwayne Dedmon, you have to use him like the player that he is, like the rolling guy that he is. So those are just a couple of things I took away.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point. Like seeing Dwayne Dedmon with the ball above his head around the 3-point line, looking to make a pass. That's not prime Dwayne Dedmon spot on the floor. I'm totally with you there. It was interesting. And Alex put it in the chat here that the Dedmon that they kind of went with Omer down the stretch. I know the game was kind of out of reach, so I don't know if maybe that's Spo just getting run from other guys. I think you bring up a good point about PJ. He continues to impress me with the other things he does with his game. 5 assists. Like that. I had the pleasure of watching the Cavs broadcast, and they mentioned that he's shooting something like 54% from the corner. And it was as he was swishing another corner 3. So PJ Tucker was one of the highlights of the night, but overall they don't have enough. And I think that, like, again, I am going to continue to harp on this. So as you listen to this show over and over again, just remember, get through just these games without Jimmy and Bam, get through them 500 and you will survive this stretch. But we got some other guys that we need to talk about, because as much as the field goal percentage was equal, they both shot 44%. 3-pointers were kind of in Cleveland's direction, more free throws in the Cavs' direction. But to Brady's point, like a lot of this stuff's even. Assists 2 in Miami's favor, rebounds 3 in Cleveland's favor, turnovers only 2. Miami had more than Cleveland, 14-12. So like a lot of that.
They really corrected that in the second half, because in the first half,
you're right.
At halftime, it was like 8 or 9 that gap in turnovers. And then the free throw thing, by the way, is happening every game that they've played without Jimmy and Bam. Like every game, they're down by a lot in free throws. They're winning some of those games, right? So I think we got to kind of, I guess, identify what's the difference, right? Is it just the jump shooting?
Yeah, no, I know. And there's also some other things that I think we need to talk about that are starting to get in the way of the offense here, particularly with Tyler. Like he doesn't look right, and I think that it's worth at least talking a little bit more about. But before we do, want to tell you about a great sponsor for the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that is Therapist Preferred. They are a CBD company founded in 2019 by a physical therapist. And their whole deal is to really maximize performance and recovery for active people. So anybody who's active, this is for you. 100% THC free products, third-party lab verified, all products made in the USA with cutting-edge technology, organically grown hemp. Great stuff. I've ordered the CBD sports cream, the strawberry lemonade gummies, the green apple gummies. All are great. You can find links to their products at therapistpreferred.com. Use the promo code 5RSN for 25% off your order, plus free shipping on all orders around the holidays. So you can get that still before Christmas if you order now. So check out therapistpreferred.com or follow them at Therapist Preferred on social media. And again, the code is 5RSN for 25% off your order, plus free shipping on all orders. So definitely check them out. I co-sign them 100%. So Tyler Herro, guys, December's been ugly. I don't know. Like, is this a situation where he just doesn't have, like, he's going to look great when he has Jimmy and he has Bam and he has Kyle and things are rolling. But right now it's just too much on his plate, because I'm starting to get concerned. I have to be honest. Like, he looks a little, there's times when he looks disengaged. There's times when he's even looked a shade, like a step slow almost. And I don't know what that means. Tonight, you could maybe say it's the length that's bothering him, but I've seen it in other games. Alex, I'll start here with you, and Brady, jump in right after him, because I just would like to pick both of your brains on what you've seen from Tyler Herro in the last, like, let's say 10 games or so. I know that there's good scoring outputs here or there, but overall, I feel like if you look at the percentages, they've came down. The 3-point attempts have came down. The turnovers are up. Why?
I low-key think all three of those things that you said are kind of to be expected from somebody who went from, like you said, playing with two guys who Jimmy is, you know, a top 13 player in the league. Some say top 10. What is Bam? Top 25, top 30 at worst, right? Like, I just think missing those guys and what they provide on both ends of the floor has just made his job a lot harder, where he's become the focus of defenses, even if he's not starting, right? And like you said, tonight he had Okoro on him a lot of times, and the Cavs defense, like, we got to shout them out too, because they've obviously been really good all season. They frustrated the Heat in Miami when they played recently. And that was a game where Tyler was struggling with their length too, right? So not to just put it all on that, but I just want to contextualize it as much as I can, because I think Tyler is not at the level that those other guys are, right? Like, even with that leap that he's taken in consistency this season. And look, 6 of 15 isn't that bad. So it's not like he had this terrible game. It's just it looks bad when you have high turnover games like he's had in recent times. And we know that he's not giving you too much on defense. So when the threes aren't falling and when he has high turnovers, it doesn't look great. But I think this is all part of the growth process for Tyler. And I think he's handled it pretty well. Maybe the aggressiveness can go back up a little bit. I feel like he was a little bit more enthusiastic to shoot towards the beginning of the season. But look, I don't hate it. Like, him being patient and trying to find his spots that's kind of what he has to do when it's him and Lowry kind of setting everything up for the Heat on offense. So I'm interested to see his bounce back, because when you look at and you isolate the December numbers, I don't have them in front of me right now. When I did it a day or two ago, they were not good. Like, those percentages were down. I think it was like 39 from the field and 34 from three, if I had that right. So, you know, you want those to go back up. It's that come down is real, right? So I think I'm interested to see his bounce back here.
Yeah, and you hit on the length thing real quickly, and I think it needs to be talked about more, because I mentioned on before floor, the pregame show earlier, that he's basically found counters for every defense that's been thrown at him. Like, drop was the thing that he was great at. He came in, he could dissect drop coverage like it was nothing. This season, we've seen him find counters for switching. They blitzed him, and he's found ways. They were doubling him many, many games early in the season. But the one thing you mentioned, the last Cleveland game being the same way, the length bothers him a little bit. And I think there's clear reasons for it. And it seemed like Spo was ready for it as well, because they changed some things early on where they started running some more high pick and rolls for Herro, and they tried to set the screen a lot higher just to give him more space, just because it was just a lane of dudes. Right. So they would put a guy like Laurie on him on the perimeter and basically dare him to drive, because it was a funnel into two more big men just waiting. And it led to him kind of throwing those weird floaters up, and it was kind of making people think like what it was like indecisive, but it was just him in such a weird spot from the defense. And then if he tries to go on the perimeter and make a play, you have a 7-footer in your face. And as much as we talk about his growth on the ball, separation, like I said before, his separation comes from the high release point where he just rises up over the top of people, and you cannot rise over the top of a guy like Markin or a guy like Mobley or a guy like Jared Allen. So it just seems like that is an issue, the length thing. There aren't many teams that he's going to have to deal with that, frankly. Like, other than a switch here and there, there's no team like Cleveland, unless they see him in a playoff series. It'll just be hard. And obviously with Jimmy and Bam, it just makes things so much easier, because those guys will be guarding, Jimmy and Bam and different guys. But I will say it has been a struggle. I think over the last 8 games, the percentages have been down, but to say, I think it was over the last 8 games, he's averaging 17 a game still. He averaged 17 a game all last season. So if his worst, him at his worst is him last season, I'd say that's pretty good. Like, we could say like it was temporary for what we saw early in the season, but you have to judge it the same way and say this is temporary as well, or this could be. So you could look at a couple ways, and I think it's a good thing that he's kind of hitting a wall now, because if he was coasting like he was early in the season, and you're getting towards the end of the regular season, you're heading into playoff time, you have guys like Bam returning and Deeper returning, and you're finally getting in the final form, and then Herro hits that wall, then I'd be worried. But you get in December after he had that hot start, and he has guys returning coming up, like if there was a time to hit that wall, it's now, especially as we get past the 15th. It is a bunch of easy teams they're going to be playing. Not saying they're going to win those because they're not going to have top players, but it's an easier matchup for Tyler Herro. So just looking at tonight, like I said, it is the length. It is just seeing him reading things differently. But frankly, there's just nothing he can do against a team like this.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And also, if Jimmy and Bam were out there, you know, the mismatch hunting, and you get a big in foul trouble, and then the lineups change. So, like, I don't want to overreact to this one game. It's just I felt like one of the things that I really loved about the way Tyler started the season is that very early on, it seemed like just nobody could knock him off his game. Like, he was getting to his spots, and he had a certain swagger about the way he was doing it that was like, you can't stop me. And I said it on the podcast that, like, he was literally like, nobody was stopping him for weeks. And maybe that was just a hot stretch, to Brady's point. And if this is the low stretch, this is like, relatively speaking, that's good because he's going to rise back up. Right. So, like, I do think that we shouldn't overreact too much. The thing about it, and I'll ask either of you to jump in here before we close out, just with some final thoughts, is I'm interested as we get down into the season, how the trade deadline impacts this team. You know, we've seen this team last year feel some kind of way around the trade deadline. And I'm just interested this year to see how that maps out when it comes to Tyler and Duncan, because Duncan continues to struggle on and off. And I think
that was around the time that they slumped last season, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Specifically Duncan.
Correct. So, like, that's something, I guess, as we look ahead, that's something that I'm looking for, because, you know, as I looked on prizepicks.com tonight, Tyler Herro was 19.5, and I went over on Tyler, and that didn't work out for me, but I'm still going to play tomorrow, because probably my favorite daily fantasy platform is PrizePicks. I use the app all the time. It's super easy. So literally, like, it's like 1, 2, 3 made that easy. You pick your favorite stars, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball when it's that season, NHL, college football. So they essentially have all sports. I play NFL and NBA mainly. You select between 2 and 5 players, regardless of sport, choose their over and under. You can do total fantasy score or their single stats. Pick whether they're going to have a good day or a bad day, essentially on or over or under. And then you just watch, see how they do. If they're over or under, if you pick correctly, you can stack together your correct picks, and you can win up to 10 times your money. There's the power play where you can predict over and under on 4 players and win 10 times the entry fee. If you use the code 5, FIVE, you'll get your deposit doubled right now. That is a great promo. Use promo code 5 at prizepicks.com and check out PrizePicks on 5. That is a YouTube show where we have a host of characters from the network that go over PrizePicks for NFL and NBA. So, okay, I'm not going to make too much of Tyler Herro, but I'm going to start to get worried if the performances and the percentages don't come up and we turn the corner on the new year. If Duncan is still inconsistent, there's going to be a large contingent of Heat fans that say, there's your big contract that can match salaries, and there's your young blue chip asset. Go get me a player. And I hate that I'm making that conversation right now. I'm usually not the guy that wants to take it there, but I just think that their inconsistency and some of this kind of the peaks and valleys is going to have Heat fans looking to see if grass is greener on the other side. If either you want to comment on that, I'm all ears. But the last thing I do want to talk about is this length thing, because Brady touched on it. And I think it's worth asking, is there a team, Cleveland, they can meet Cleveland in a 4-5 matchup. So that's one thing we want to talk about. Although I think fully healthy, Miami mitigates these issues. And that, yeah, I know, right? The Cavs are playing that well. So I don't think that that's going to be necessarily how that actualizes by season's end. But is there any other team that even has a couple players on the roster that could give the Heat this type of trouble? Brady, I'll start with you. Is there anybody in the Eastern Conference, we'll start there, that jumps out at you other than Cleveland that can replicate some of this, that stunts Tyler or even at times, I think we've seen Jimmy even can be bothered by length, right?
Yeah, I think Alex just said it right there. I think the only one is the Bucks. Like, I don't really know if there's another one. But the thing is about the Bucks is I don't think that's a matchup that stunts Tyler Herro. Like, this is a matchup that stunts Tyler Herro. We've seen Tyler figure Milwaukee out in many ways. And when you have the biggest they're going to go is Giannis at the 4 and Brook at the 5. Like, I don't see them going much bigger than that.
And Brook is like such a question mark because he just had back surgery as a 7-footer who's been in the league for so long. Who knows if he's even going to be like healthy during playoff time?
So let's even just say Giannis and Portis because we've seen that. So like that's a similar thing. They're not really going to see the Tyler Herro matchup frequently, as Alex saying it's food. That just seems like the only one. If I'm looking down the line here, like the Sixers have Embiid, but they don't really have a big team. Like they're not putting a big line out there. So it just doesn't seem like there's many matchups that'll impact it. As you said, I don't know if the Cavs will be in a 4 or 5 spot like by the season's end. But it would be interesting to see how that would play out. But like you said before, I really do think this wouldn't happen if you had Jimmy and Bam, if you had them mismatch hunting, if you found a way, they would find ways to get Tyler off or the big man off of Tyler. Like they would find ways to go about it that you wouldn't really be worried about it. And even looking at tonight, like I said before, like they probably win this game if they just get to the free throw line a few more times. Like I know the score may not say that, but if you have Jimmy, obviously if you have Jimmy, it changes a ton of things. But if you had Jimmy's free throw ability to get to the line and kind of draw fouls, you probably win this game. So it's hard to tell, but I do think to answer your question, I think the Bucks is probably the only one.
They got off to such a bad start too. Like, and this team without Jimmy and Bam, and not to mention, the other guys that they've got missing right now, because I didn't mention Caleb Martin earlier. I keep forgetting he's not playing, right? But just in the way that they are right now, they cannot afford to be getting off to these bad starts, right? Like they have to be on point from start to finish because, like I said before, like this kind of playing from behind uphill battle stuff is not how this team is meant to play, even when they're healthy, but specifically without Jimmy and Bam, because it's like those guys can help you control the pace. Like Brady said, really get you those free throw attempts because they're getting dominated in that category every game now. And it's just underrated that whole aspect of it because right now, even though I like what they've done the past few games, adjusting to just what they have on the roster at the moment, as a result, taking more threes and just kind of going a little bit more modern with their shot profile and going a little bit more traditional on defense, even though they're still blitzing pick and rolls. Like I like the adjustments, but it's also, you got to do that from start to finish, right? When you're missing your 2 best players, you can't get off to these bad starts. And I know it's kind of an obvious thing to say, but yeah, like I just really don't like it ever when this team is playing from behind. I don't think they're built for that.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you. I can't wait.
End up living and dying with 3 without Jimmy and Bam, right?
Yeah, no, and that's a tough place to be, especially when you've got guys that are going through the mental stuff. I mean, I still think that Duncan, for as good as I just don't understand how he can look like he's back and then have a game like tonight. It's just it completely.
But he can't even counter that 3 like against the Cavs because there's always 2 7-footers down there.
That's true. That's true.
And
even if he were to take the one
threes.
dribble, they're going to get it from behind. There's a lot of trouble. We just want to forget this matchup. It's so funny that it's the Cleveland Cavaliers of all teams. But I would just say this: if these 2 teams meet in the playoffs, it will be a parade to the free throw line for Jimmy Butler. They will get the superstar, all-star foul calls. This is a team of players that have no playoff experience for the most part. I am not afraid of them. So let's squash any of that.
Like every time.
We're not going to do the thing where we're scared of the Cleveland 3-6 matchup or the 4-5 matchup, Heat fans. Let's not go there. But to give them the credit that they deserve, they are in the 4th place, in the 4th seed now. They're 17-12. That is the Cleveland Cavaliers, by the way.
Crazy.
Miami drops to 5th with the loss tonight. They are 16-12 heading into the matchup on Wednesday with the Philadelphia 76ers in Philadelphia. Philadelphia just happens to be the 6th seed at 15-12. So essentially this is Miami playing for the 4 seed tonight and losing it. And we'll see playing for the 5th seed on Wednesday. And we do have a watch party that night. Alex, where's the watch party again?
Quarterdeck and Davey.
Quarter Deck and Davey, thank you for the assist there. And I know we have our big promotion with ASX Sports. You got to download this app. So it's stock for sports, essentially, to keep it really easy. There's going to be a matchup for the Heat Sixers game where essentially we will be giving away $200 on site for anybody on site who's playing, and $200 for anybody who's playing remotely, because you can just download the app and play. Essentially, you have $1,000 to buy stock in as many players as you would like, and depending on how they're playing, you buy or sell those stocks to those players, and whoever has the most money at the end, because players' stock increase as they play well throughout the game, ends up winning the prize pool of money. Super fun. So if you're on site, you'll have a better chance of winning than those that are off site, but I'll be playing off site. I think it's a super cool promotion. So check that out. Come to the watch party. Gentlemen, any last thoughts on this game before we put a bow on it and get the hell out of Cleveland? Silence is golden.
I think the only thing I will say is that this feels like this is going to be an overreaction game, but I just want to say one thing is that this team just beat the Bucks and the Bulls. Like, obviously the Bulls were far from healthy. The Bucks were healthy, obviously without Brook, but this is a team that just won those 2 games. This is a beginning of a road trip for these next 4 games. Like, I don't think this is a game like me and you, Greg, we predicted the Heat to win on the pregame thing, but this isn't a game that we really thought they would win. Like, this isn't a winnable beginning of a road trip, not a great matchup. Like, this is not one of those games where you kind of thinking that they lost this one. Like, this is a game you kind of expected, that now it's just focusing on the next one type thing, that coming off those 2 wins from before, like, this should not be an overreaction game.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. And we're going to leave on this positive note. I love that you took it to that place, because they do play at Philly. And I'll say that, you know what, when we do pregame for Wednesday's show, I don't know that I'm going to be that I'm going to feel so great about that if we don't have no Jimmy or no Bam. But after that, Heat fans, listen to this: at Orlando, at Detroit, Indiana at home, Detroit at home, Orlando at home, Washington at home, at San Antonio, at Houston. That's how you close out 2021. Wow. So I think you have the opportunity for guys to get healthy, for guys to get in rhythm, for guys to get victories, which gets confidence. So there's light at the end of the tunnel, but it just wasn't tonight. Thank you for joining. We'll be back the rest of the week. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.